Hello, and welcome to Commissioner in the Car. Today is Monday, May 16th, and it is, I'm Dustin Zarni. I'm the Democratic Elections Commissioner for Onondaga County, and today is Map Day. The maps for the New York Congressional maps and New York Senate maps were, the draft maps were released by the Special Master Johnathan Cervas, who is the person in charge of drawing the maps by the court. If the court accepts these maps, they will become law on Friday, May 20th. So before I get into the maps, reminder of how we got to this point. So New York had an independent redistricting commission. That independent redistricting commission could not come to a consensus on maps. It was evenly divided between Democrats and Republicans appointed by political appointees. They could not come to a conclusion on maps. They sent one set of draft maps to the legislature, but they were a bifurcated maps. They were one set Democrat, one set Republican. The legislature rejected those maps, sent it back to the Independent Redistricting Commission. They could not meet, did not meet. Democrats blamed Republicans, Republicans blamed Democrats. And because they did not meet, they could not come up with another set of maps. So because they could not come up with another set of maps, the legislature decided to draw maps by themselves. Unfortunately, the legislature drew maps that that heavily favored Democrats in both the Congressional, Senate, and of course the Assembly, which has traditionally favored Democrats. Those maps were then brought to court. We went through all three levels of court, and at the end of the day, I won't go into the rigmaroles on that, where sometimes they were thrown out, sometimes they were kept. But at the end of the day, the final court decided that the New York Senate maps and the New York Congressional maps had to be thrown out. The Senate maps were found to be an issue with the process, and the Congressional maps were found to be a Democratic gerrymander. And a special master was appointed to hear testimony from communities, which he did last week, and submit maps. The maps were submitted today. This is the draft maps. And then he will be taking objections on those maps for the next couple of days. And then on Friday, he will submit his final maps, which will be ruled on by the court, and petitioning will start on May 21st. So how final are the draft maps we received today is still up in the air. It does seem like there may not be a lot of changes. There's not a lot of days. There's only 2 days to have written objections sent to the court, and then after that, Special Master Cervas will submit his final maps, and it'll probably likely that Judge McAllister will accept those, and those will become the maps and that we run on for the August 23rd primary. Special note, Assembly already had their maps brought into court a couple of times. They were found that they were not gerrymanders, but also because they were not sued on the first time, they were kept in place, and then when the action was brought last week, the Assembly maps were found. It was too late to actually change those this year, and any lawsuit would have to wait until 2024. So right now, we're not talking about the Assembly, although a new lawsuit was filed today in a different court, and we'll see what happens with that. Though, again, probably starting to run against that time period for actually redrawing these lines, since on Saturday is when petitions are going to start. Now, the Senate maps, first I'm going to deal with Onondaga County. The Congressional map is the easiest one to deal with. The Congressional map used to be named New York 24 under the maps we've run on for the last 10 years. John Katko has been the representative in that since 2014, and he is not running for re-election. The legislative maps renamed it New York 22. We became a different number, and that map was what I like to call the Center City map, where it went from Oneida City over to Geneva, had Syracuse, Auburn, Cortland, Ithaca, all of it. It was kind of like a center of New York State, and all the center cities were in it. That map was the one found to be a gerrymander, maybe not necessarily because of that district, but other districts. And so then the new map released today has all of Onondaga County, all of Oneida County, and all of Madison County. It's actually a very easy map to understand. It got more Democratic than the 2010 map. The old New York 24 was a D+2. This is a D+5 map, so it got a little bit more Democratic. And it is a map that is, unites Utica and Syracuse together, and all the surrounding areas and the areas in between. So that's the basic, if you don't know the counties, that's the basic shape of the map. It has already created a shakeup in the candidates because Tompkins County, which is the Ithaca area, was cut out of the map. And there were 3 candidates from Tompkins County, Josh Riley and Vanessa Fajans-Turners on the Democratic side, and on the Republican side, Mike Siegler. Josh Riley has already announced he'll be running in New York 19, so he will not be running in New York 22. That's the new district that includes Tompkins. Frank Knoll has already announced that he's continuing to run in New York 22. Those are the only announcements as of today for Onondaga County candidates, but I think we could assume that Sam Roberts, Sarah Clee Hood, and Joel Majak will continue running in the Syracuse Onondaga-based district. Questions on whether Vanessa Fajans-Turner on the Democratic side will change to this or go to the 19th or wherever. Remember, you do not have to live there, especially in a redistricting year, but you do not have to live in the district. The Republicans, on the other hand, have some interesting choices to make. Mike Siegler was the Onondaga County designee. He's a legislature from Tompkins County. He lives in Tompkins County, so he's out of the district. And then another fellow, I forgot his last name, I'm sorry, the other Republican who was the conservative nominee is from Cayuga County. And so he no longer lives in New York 22. He actually lives in New York 23 now. So he's going to have to decide whether to continue to run for New York 22 or run for New York 23. The other big decision is Rep. Claudia Tenney, who represents Oneida County and the old New York 22. Now the new New York 22 includes her home. Now, if you remember, she had already decided to move out of her home to move to another district to run in New York 23, the old Tom Reed district. But the place she was going to move to is no longer in that district. It's in New York 19. And so is she going to continue to move, or is she going to try to represent New York 22 in for re-election? These are choices that are going to have to be made on the Republican side. Overall, the district got a little bit more Democratic, and it's more compact and a reasonable district for the Special Master to come up with. I think you can make a lot of cases that the central New York area consists of Onondaga, Madison, and Oneida. Unfortunately, our friends in Cayuga County and Auburn seem to be the odd man out of the central New York district and paired into the western district that goes all the way to Amherst outside of Buffalo. Now we go back to New York Senate, where things got really interesting. Onondaga County had 2 districts, Senate districts. It went to 3 districts, and now it's back to 2 districts. And they did a very weird and kind of flipped the numbers on this. Rachel May, what had been representing New York Senate, and still does, New York Senate District number 53. However, the new map has her in a different district named New York 50. That district includes all of Syracuse and all of the northern suburbs of Onondaga County. It's wholly contained inside Onondaga County, and is a very Democratic district by the numbers. It's a D plus 21 district by the Dave Redistricting app. This solid district. And that's because it has all of the city of Syracuse in it. And despite having some more conservative parts of town, like Lysander and Cicero, probably the more conservative parts of Onondaga County, you have other Democratic areas of town like Salina, and then Clay is kind of in the middle as part of that district. It also has Elbridge and Van Buren, which are more conservative. But because the city of Syracuse is so heavily Democratic, it's seen as a very heavy Democratic district. On the flip side, the Mannion district, John Mannion, was representing New York 50, and now he's representing the new New York 53. So they flipped the numbers a little bit. And the Mannion district is a more competitive district than what the county legislature ran, but maybe the same type of district that he won in 2020. His district starts at Camillus and goes all the way around the city of Syracuse, including Geddes, Skaneateles, Marcellus, Otisco, Fabius, Tully, Pompey, Lafayette, and then all up into DeWitt and Manlius, and then it goes east through all of Madison County and just into Oneida County, picking up the city of Utica. It's a longer district. Mannion used to be in a district that went west, and now he's in a district that goes east. But it's a D plus 5 district, or plus 4.5 or something like that. So it's a more competitive district than what the Democrats drew for that district, which I believe was like a D.88 something. But it is about on par, competitive wise, with the district he barely lost in 18 and won in 20. So it's a fairly competitive district. The interesting part, again, is what are the Republicans going to do? Because the way this district played out, there was Julie Abbott-Keenan had announced that she was running against John Mannion. She lives in Skaneateles. But running against Rachel May were two different Republican candidates, Fannie Villarreal and John Sulka. Fannie Villarreal is in the town of Onondaga, which is now also in the new Mannion district. And John Sulka is in Madison County. So, and he's an assembly person who has decided not to run for assembly and is running for Senate. And he was going to run against Rachel May and have a primary against Fannie Villarreal. And now is got a decision to make whether he's going to continue on with his race. Fannie Villarreal has a decision to make whether she's going to continue on or decide to run in the district against Rachel May in the Northern District. Now, in a redistricting year, for state office, they have to live in the same county as the other district, and then they can run in any district that they want in that county. So John Sulka has to run in the Mannion district if he's going to run. Julie Abbott-Keenan has to run. Well, she or Fannie Villarreal could both decide whether one of them wants to run in the Rachel May district in the north now and move into those districts, or move, if they win, into those districts. All three of them have submitted petitions, so all three of them don't have to walk petitions again. But it does look like there could be a primary in that district for the Republicans, as there was when it was seen as the Rachel May portion of the district. So this is going to be a very interesting choice for the Republicans. And it's going to be an interesting choice for Republicans on the congressional line. It does seem like the Democrats are continuing on to a Democratic primary for Congress, and they have their two incumbent representatives, Rachel May and John Mannion, who were not put into the same district. That was something that was feared. We see that happening downstate a lot. A lot of downstaters are being put into the same district, especially on Long Island and inside New York City, as the new line's drawn. And then they have to decide whether somebody's going to move or whether they're going to primary and have another candidate in the other race. So these are the things that are going on right now. So where do we go from here? Objections are going to be sent in for the next couple of days. I expect some tweaking of the maps, but I expect Friday, by the end of the day, that maps will be finalized. And I will do a wonky Wednesday next week, and of course a commissioner in a car next week, based on the final maps, so I can kind of try to explain it to people. Petitions will start on May 21st. Now, if you are a candidate that already submitted petitions, you can just submit a certificate saying by May 31st that you want your petitions to be held valid for a different district or the same district, and that's what's going to happen over the next few weeks. By June 10th, if they're new candidates, they have to file petitions for either the Senate or the congressional maps. And then, of course, on August 23rd will be the primary, and then, of course, November 8th, the general election. So we are in it now. Things are moving forward. We have a lot more knowledge about what's happening. And then a lot of questions that have come up because of these draft maps. What is going to happen to them? Who's going to move into what district? Who are the Republicans going to put up for any of these races? And whether Democrats can hold on to some of the more competitive congressional and Senate districts. Lots of questions. I don't have a lot of answers. Won't have a lot of answers until we release vote totals on November 8th, I would imagine. So we'll see how that goes. We will be checking all of that throughout the week, see how it goes. If you go to my Facebook or Twitter feed, you can see the maps. I put links in there to the Dave's Redistricting app, as well as New York Redistricting and You. You may have seen my interview with the head of New York Redistricting and You a couple of weeks ago. If you're really confused, these are great apps to see how things are breaking down. Now, overall, it depends on who you talk to, but there's either abject panic over the maps or more of a zen feeling over the maps. And I'm kind of in the zen camp, and I'll tell you why. While it is true that Democrats are under assault through redistricting throughout other states such as Ohio and Florida and Missouri, all of these other states that are doing these massive Republican gerrymanders that are ending up in court, and then they're not necessarily following the court orders. It's important to note that the courts have been pushing back against the Republican redistricting in some of these states. But a lot of people thought that the New York redistricting would lead to a kind of a check on this on the congressional level, where the 23-4 Democratic gerrymander would serve as a check against some of these other states and get us back to normal, and that the new map is so disproportionately favoring Republicans that it wipes out all gains. Well, I've looked at this, and Dave Wasserman has looked at this as well, and there obviously in a Republican year, there are more competitive districts in this special master map. That being said, they still should lean 22-5. Instead of 23-4, it's 22-5 Democratic. However, in a Republican year, it could be as low as 19-8 Democratic for the delegation. It should be noted that there are 7 Republicans in the New York delegation right now today on the old map. So anything better than 7 is a step forward for Democrats and a more fair map in a very heavily blue state. So I believe that at the end of the day, we're going to see something closer to the 22-5, maybe 23, or maybe 21-6, maybe 27, something along those lines. And so there will be a couple of seats lost in what the Democrats had hoped for, but yet we don't know how this election is going to pull out. I think a lot of people are assuming that this is an election that is going to be heavily Republican. And if it was, then we're going to lose a lot of these seats anyways. But if the politics of Roe and the possibility of losing abortion rights energizes the Democratic base, you might see a resurgence like we saw in 2017 and 2018, where Democrats went to the polls overwhelmingly, even though it wasn't a presidential election. So we'll have to see. It doesn't, right now, that I would say that has reasonably, we have to see that as a long shot. On the Senate side, the Dave Redistricting app shows that about 38 of the 63 districts are in a massive Democratic lean. And that's because we're in a massive Democratic state. So that means, by massive, what I mean is that at least a 10-point Democratic plus in the districts. There's 10 Republicans that are in a 10-point Republican lead. So the question is, and then there's those 15 remaining districts that are more competitive. 8 of them lean Democrat slightly. 7 of them lean Republicans slightly. So in a worst case scenario where Republicans would win all of the ones that they are competitive and that Democrats are not competitive in, or even in the swing districts, that's still a 38-25 breakdown in the House, in the Senate for Democrats as a baseline. It would need to be a massive tsunami to lose the majority, which is something you would think would be true in a blue state like New York. I hope this week to release a Wonky Wednesday on New York State's New York State's registrations. You'll see it's a massive amount of more Democrats than Republicans, and that's true in upstate New York as well as Long Island, as well as New York City. So there should be. It was only because of an extreme Republican gerrymander in 2010 that Republicans were able to hold on to the Senate for as long as they did. But finally, demographics overtook them in 2018. They lost the Senate, lost it, and got a supermajority loss in 2020. And this is on maps that were heavily favored towards the Republicans. Now we're going to see more of a favorable map. Even though it's fair map, it's still going to be more favorable for Democrats. The question is, there's a lot of incumbents that seem to be paired up against each other, especially down in New York City. So there's going to be some more open seats unless people move into those open seats. We'll have to see how this week, kind of plays out that way. Again, if you're within the county, you can move to any Senate district that comes into your county in a redistricting year. Of course, that just sounds easier than it is. It's hard to move people. It's hard to move your family. It's hard to move your friends and family. It's hard to represent an area that you may not have represented before. So, it's a lot more complicated than I think a lot of people make it out to be. That being said, I think there's a lot of motivation to move and be done with this. So we'll have to see how this goes, and we will over the next year or so, next week or so, not a year. It's going to seem like a year. So right now, the maps are what they are. I don't think they're necessarily horrible. I don't think they're necessarily great for Democrats. I think they're fair, but we really won't be able to tell that until we see how the maps play out. And you're right, Mark. Mark said that they're going to pick up a seat Democrats could pick up a seat in Binghamton, Ithaca. That's true. There's a new seat created down there that should be Democratic. And also, Dave has been in the comments. He's talking about the mail check cards are out. That's right. Mail check cards have started hitting the post office. Really, what you should don't look at the districts on them, because the districts are going to change after these maps are drawn. Really, what you need to look at that is the polling place, so you can know where your polling place is for the July and August primaries. That's the most important thing, and that's why we had to send them out. By the way, they had to be sent out by May 13th, so by law. And yeah, Dan, Mark, you're right. They're saying that there's 3 Dem-leaning seats in the Albany area. I do think that a fairer drawn map is going to have fairer drawn seats upstate as well as downstate, because some of these gerrymanders from 2010 that the Republicans did were just phenomenally, well crafted to keep Republicans in power, even though there were Democrats growing in upstate New York. So, I'm not a pessimist, especially on the Senate maps. I think there's going to be some shakeups. I think there's going to be some Democrats running against each other. I think some new Democrats are going to emerge on the Senate maps. And on the congressional maps, it's a tougher hill. But if we're not winning, if we haven't turned the tide this year against some of the forces that are out there. And remember, when a Democratic president is in power, Republicans tend to do well in the midterms, in almost every midterm, except for, ironically, when the Republicans were overreaching and trying to impeach Bill Clinton in his second term in 1996. Democrats actually picked up seats in the midterms. We also saw that with the Republicans. Again, when Republicans are in power in the midterms, they tend to lose seats, with the exception of George W. Bush, who picked up seats in the midterms of after 9/11 in 2002. So outside forces can affect these races and have them go against the trends. And the question is Roe? Yeah, that's right, 2002. I said it. Outside for is the overturning of Roe enough to do that? Is that going to mobilize enough people? I don't know. We're going to see. But meantime, locally, we are starting to get some fairer pictures of what these maps are going to look like in 2022. And we have a lot of races going on. So check in next week, and I'll be back and talking about the final maps, which I'm willing to bet are not going to look much different, especially in Onondaga County, than they do now. But we'll get into it. I'll do a statistical analysis on it for my Wonky Wednesday next week. This week on Wonky Wednesday, I'll be talking about New York State redistricting. New York State registration numbers. I hope I've had that in the hopper. I was hoping to get to that last week, and I didn't get to it. And then on Friday, I'll be having a couple of members of the City of Syracuse Redistricting Commission. They're about to release their draft map for the city council districts this week, and about to go into final draft draft hearings for their next 5 hearings on the City of Syracuse council maps. And I'm hoping they'll be sharing that with you this week as well. But take care. Remember, COVID is still spiking. It's still prevalent in our community. And I ask you to get vaccinated. I ask you to get boosted. And if you're not vaccinated and you're not boosted, I ask you, please do so. But also wear a mask indoors if you can. I forget sometimes too. But when I can, I wear my KN95 mask out and try to stop the spread, at least continue to protect myself from possible spread that way. So take care. And thank all of you for tuning in, and I hope to bring you more information throughout the week. Bye-bye.